You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Monte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Подача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Pella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans. My name is Matt Markstone. I'm the host of the show. No matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thank you for making the show part of your day. I hope you enjoy it. Saints have had a busy week this week with 2 home matches and some mixed results. We are out of the FA Cup after going out on penalties to Derby County after conceding a 2-goal lead. So a bit frustrating for a number of fans. It gives us the weekend off coming up this following weekend, but that's maybe a consolation prize. But the team and the manager did regain focus very quickly, putting away Marco Silva's Everton side. Has been struggling of late, but a 2-1 win at home and a vital 3 points, moving us further up the table and putting some distance once again between us and some of the teams towards the bottom. We're not out of danger by any means, but the team definitely looks to be moving in the right direction, at least in the Premier League. And now there are no distractions, but we also have some issues that raises. We have had some youngsters who have started to come into the team, and now we're going to have to see when and where people will get minutes or what will happen. Maybe somebody goes out on loan now in the transfer window. We don't actually know. But joining me in hopes of figuring all of that out are the hosts of the In That Number podcast. You can find them on Twitter at Number Podcast, and the hosts Ray and Kevin are on Twitter at RayHunt84 and at Moscow Mush. And the links to their podcast and their Twitter handle, as well as the iTunes and all that stuff, and the Facebook page is all in the show notes. If you haven't listened to them in the past, you should give them a try. They are the newest of the Saints podcasts, but they've been around now for almost 30 weeks. And they're doing a great job. And it's 2 guys who are longtime Saints fans. They're doing the podcast together, and it was a pleasure to have them on the show this week. And we'll talk about the 2 matches. We'll talk about some of the team selection dilemma that maybe manager Ralph Hasenhüttl is facing going forward. And we'll do all of that over the next hour and 20 minutes or so. So it is a bit longer, but we don't have a match coming up at the weekend. So we figured we'll take our time. We'll go through it because you know what? What else are we going to do next weekend, unless you go out and maybe watch some non-league, or maybe you watch the Southampton Women's Football Club play next weekend. And one of their players will be joining me next weekend on next week's show, actually, to talk about that. And really looking forward to it. And busy time for me. We'll also have a special Patreon-only podcast coming up to preview the Crystal Palace match. And so I'm looking forward to that. So plenty of podcasting going on, even if the games are slowing down just for a little bit. But since this is such a lengthy show, we don't want to take a bunch of time here, so we'll jump into it now. Once again, you will hear Ray and Kevin, the host of the In That Number podcast. Be sure to follow them on Twitter at Number Podcast, at RayHunt84, and at Moscow Mush. And if you're interested in getting that extra podcast episode, be sure to head over to patreon.com/SFC Delivery. Sign up to become a patron of the show. And to all those out there who have done that, thank you so much. We got your questions in this week because I did not forget, thankfully. So without further ado, let's get to the show. Thanks for listening as always. We'll talk to you soon. We'd like to welcome to the Southampton Delivery Podcast the hosts of the In That Number podcast. We have Ray Hunt and Kevin, who is at Moscow Mush, joining us today. They are at Numbers Podcast on Twitter, and they are the preferred Saints podcast of Danny Ings, according to last week's episode. So, guys, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having us on. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. Pleasure for us to be here.
No, this is great. I mean, I think now this means that all of the Saints podcasts have been on this show, which is part of what I like. I like listening to podcasts, as I was telling you before. And so it's nice to get to talk to you guys. I think you are the newest, but you've kind of come in and stuck with it, and I think you guys have brought something new to the table. So it's always a pleasure to listen to the show, and it's one that I look forward to now. So but let's start in case people don't know kind of who you are. Ray, I think you are the closest podcaster to actually the club in terms of geography. I think Ben lives up in Scotland, and now John has moved I think out to Plymouth or something else. So and I'm out here in California, but you're right close to the club and going to matches and stuff like that. So I mean, how did you come to be a fan of the club?
Well, as you say, the geography, I'm like 10-minute drive away now. So I was born and raised in Southampton. I grew up in a Saints household. My stepdad was, and still is, a huge fan. So I've always been around that environment, and it was instilled from a really, really early age. And when I left school, I actually went to work at the newly opened St Mary's Stadium and actually met my wife there. So, you could say that if it wasn't for Southampton Football Club, I wouldn't have met my wife and wouldn't have had my kids. So, yeah.
That's a lot. There's a deeper meaning there. There's a deeper love.
Yeah.
That's good. And Kevin, you're living, are you actually in Moscow, or are you around Moscow, or where do you live in the area?
Yeah, I live in the west of Moscow with my wife. I've been living here for nearly about 8 years now. I had been coming here on and off before, but I'm from Southampton. Grew up there. Grew up on the same street as Ray, and we've known each other since I can remember. And obviously grew up cheering on the Saints.
Now, for you, can I ask? I mean, I had this kind of going through school and stuff. I was a history major, and I wrote my my senior whatever on the Great Northern War. I have a love for Russia a little bit. It's since faded because I teach the classes I teach. I don't get to talk about any of that stuff. But what prompted you to move to Russia?
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't know that, but yeah, it looks like we've got a shared love for Russian history. When we were at school, we had to do a bit of research into Russian history to write an essay about George Orwell's Animal Farm, and I was really fascinated because Russia's it's just sort of a black hole in our global knowledge. So it really took me away, and I've got a passion for languages, and I started trying to teach myself Russian, but I didn't get far with that. So that's how I ended up coming out to Moscow first in 2004. And I loved it so much, and I went to university, studied Russian at university, and I was looking for a job about nearly 10 years ago, and I thought, I could be looking for temping work around the area, or I could go to Moscow where I know I'm in need. So I came over here, and I haven't regretted it since.
That's awesome. I mean, like you said, our kind of knowledge of Russia, especially I think in Western culture, is stunted, and it's definitely we look at it through a certain lens. And a lot of times when I was learning about it, it was always through the lens of the Cold War and communism and all of that stuff, which I really enjoyed kind of learning about and all that stuff. But now it's I think it's starting to change a little bit, but that might be because our president apparently is doing other things. So, but this is not a political podcast.
Bedfellow.
Yeah. So.
No, definitely. I mean, it is. I mean, India and Australia, all of those places are much closer to us. And I suppose in the States, Russia, especially in the 80s and early 90s, it's a bit more vilified than it was in Britain. But it definitely made it a fascinating place that we really know nothing about. And it's never a dull day.
Just to kind of get it towards the football, I mean, we hear about, a lot of the stuff about the Russian hooligans, and there was this kind of great long read in The Guardian and a couple of other places, approaching the World Cup simply because I think a lot of it because what happened in Marseille during the Euros. But I mean, do you witness that? Is there a big difference between football culture in Russia versus in Britain, maybe?
Wow, I mean, that's a question that I could speak about for an entire hour. But I mean, the whole scaremongering around Russian hooliganism. I mean, I think that was justified to a certain extent. My wife and I were there at the England-Russia game in Marseille, and I was in my England shirt. She was in a Russia shirt. We had England and Russia flags. And we saw just after they scored that equaliser, they just rushed across us. just totally ignored me and just went for the English sector. So yeah, that did happen. But yeah, everyone was quite worried that we're going to see similar disturbing scenes in the World Cup this year. But yeah, the Russian authorities really cracked down. And I've heard firsthand from Russian football fans who are a little bit closer to what they call okolo footballers, so like, yeah, around the football. So where they just meet up and have big gang fights. And they said that, yeah, anyone who's just had any fleeting involvement with that in the last 5 years, they've just been told, stay at home or you're going to be thrown in jail.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
So me watching at 4:00 in the morning from my house is so far removed from that or anything like that it's insane. And even going last year to West Ham, it was obviously it was the first week after an international break. It was Mark Hughes' first match, but the last home match they had was when they invaded the pitch and had all that stuff. So there was a big police presence. And I remember just Freddie from The Ugly Inside walking like it's no big deal. I'm jet lagged, exhausted. It's the equivalent of 4 a.m, and I'm freaking out a little bit inside. And so I don't know. It's just a whole different thing. So
and you've watched Green Street, right?
Bits and pieces. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Russian hooligans, they sort of emulate themselves on the firms of the 1980s. And whilst we kind of stopped that so that we could play European football again, they seem to have taken it like as a textbook of how fans should act. And I mean, I can see, that kind of ultras thing where they're really behind the team with the fireworks and the chanting and the flags and the banners. Like, that's all great. But yeah, when it turns to violence, that's not on.
Yeah. Ray, you've been in any large football gang fights lately?
No, never actually.
That's probably better. All right. So for people who haven't listened to your show, maybe, and I'll be honest that a lot of the people, we probably share a lot of listeners, I would assume. Like what format? I mean, you guys are a little bit different, I think, in terms of how you do it. You obviously have 2 of you guys that are on the show every week, but what kind of explain the format a little bit and some of the things that you do that maybe listeners of this show won't be used to. And I'm thinking specifically like chants and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's pretty simple. I just wanted a real simple start. Just do a little bit of news from what we had from the previous week, and then just start with the game that we just watched. Talk about that between us. We give our thoughts on man of the match. Usually that's pretty different as well. And then we just preview the next opponents, have a bit of fun. We do our predictions. We go head to head on that. We have a fantasy football league, which you're quite welcome to join, by the way. Okay. And then Kev kind of like put in it towards the end. He threw in this little chant challenge that he liked to do. That he wanted something different. And I think towards the start of the season, especially, every week we put a new player on, and he wanted a chant for them. And I don't know if you've listened to him, but Kev come up with some belters.
Yeah.
And he blew me out of the water every week. So yeah.
I feel like he had the list, and he was just like, I can write this one and this one, and then I'll ask him about this. And I was like, I can't do that.
It's definitely not my forte.
Yeah, you've said that many times. But I just think that like we should be doing something different and having fun. And I think for me, I thought being different could be being a shorter podcast than the other ones that are around. And just having a bit of fun with the team chants and just silly banter like that. I love that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, what was the decision making process when you guys decided to start the podcast? Well,
I mean, I'd only recently started listening to podcasts. It's probably about 3 years ago, I want to say. And I'm a sports fanatic. I mean, I'm usually, a lot of North American sports I'm well into. And I got involved with a New York Rangers podcast as a listener. Got talking to the creators, the hosts of that, and it just inspired me to do my own. And I thought, well, the one passion that I have is football and Saints in particular. So I thought I'm going to give it a go. I just threw myself head in, and I spoke to Kev and thought, wondered if he'd be interested in it, and he was straight away. So yeah.
I'm a podcast fiend. Because I commute a lot around the city doing my work. So I listen to about 20-25 hours of podcasts a week. So yeah, when you asked me if you wanted to be involved, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was straight away. I mean, you were all over it, and I think you keep me, keen And I think you're driven for it, and I think we both work well together.
Yeah. I mean, Ray's just an all-round sports expert. I mean, any sport you name it, he'll be able to tell you something about it.
Oh no, no! Don't put me on the spot now.
I won't do that. I promise. And I'm glad you said New York Rangers, not Texas Rangers. Otherwise, I probably would have hung up because I'm a Houston Astros fan. So,
yes.
But I mean, for me, doing the podcast was away from. I mean, I think I've talked about it enough. But being out here from California, there are 5 or 6 fans down in LA. There are 5 or 6 fans up in the Bay Area. Both of those are 4 hours away, 3 or 4 hours away. There's a guy, Dave Lee, who's one of the patrons, who's over in Bakersfield, and there's another guy who's going to school at Cal Poly. But that's it, So if I wanted to be connected to the fan base, really, and the team, this was kind of the only way I could do it, and it's been great for me. It's given me a big escape from a lot of things, and I probably spend 5, 6, 7, 8 hours on it every week, and it's something I really enjoy. So it's nice to hear kind of the decision for you guys to make it. And I mean, you two being friends for so long and knowing each other for so long, I think that's great too, because one of you living in Southampton, one of you living in Moscow, you probably otherwise don't get to communicate as regularly.
No, that was it. I think that's one of the difficulties that we had. Like we went through months without talking with each other. It is difficult. But then when I decided to do it, I thought, yeah, Kev, straight away, and it would be a way that we can contact, and we do. I mean, we're in contact all the time, aren't we now, Kev? Because of this. I mean, there comes days where we're just like texting each other all the time and saying, "Have you heard this? Have you heard that? Did you see this?" So yeah, I do think it's great for our relationship as well, and we can actually just talk about Saints now.
Yeah,
it's changed my relationship both with Ray and with Saints as well. I mean, it's just brought my fandom to another level, I think, in a way that maybe I'm a little bit disconnected from the fan base here in Moscow. Although there is a sizable Moscow Saints Supporters Association here, and we do meet up to watch matches now and again throughout the season. But yeah, it's definitely changed for me as a Saints fan.
That's awesome. And I mean, since you guys have been doing the show, has there been anything that's really surprised you about it? Was it more difficult to do, or was there something that's come up that you weren't expecting? Maybe. I
think from my point of view, the editing side of it, I've never edited or produced a show or anything. I've never done anything like that. So jumping straight into the editing was a bit of a shock, because I'm still learning. I mean, we've only had 20 episodes now, Kev?
Yes, it'll be our 21st.
21st today, yeah. And every week I'm finding out new things, and I'm finding out new ways to mess it up as well, because I don't think we've had a crystal clear episode that's come out yet. But as I say, I'm learning, and we're both learning.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of constantly evolving, both like in the format and technically. I mean, we're kind of making improvements each time to try and make it sound better. And you've given us definitely a very good example to work towards.
Yeah, I mean, it does take up a lot of time as well. I mean, and especially because of the hours that I work and the time difference between us. And it's also difficult to build up a following as well, to get in those listeners.
It is. It really is.
And of course, it doesn't help when Saints are losing as well. So if Saints are going on a winning streak, people are going to want to listen more. So
yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I've been doing it for 2 years now. It's my wife would say I don't do things halfway. I kind of am either I can cut out things for completely, or I can do them 100%, but I can't kind of just go in and out. And so when I told her I was going to do the podcast, I think she knew it was going to be every single week. And it has been. And I get, I've even said to her, I think I'm going to take next week off or whatever. And then, she can see me getting antsy like on Friday, and I was like, I gotta record something. So, it's just the way it goes.
Got the bug.
Yeah. But,
it's amazing dedication.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's, I tell some people I don't have any other hobbies. I play football once a week. I go to work, I hang out, I do stuff with the kids, I run them around everywhere, between their sports and guitar lessons and dance and everything else. And so this is, I'm recording at 6:35 in the morning here. Usually I record somewhere between 4:30 and 6, and I edit. And a lot of the time I spend on it is before anybody else is awake. So, it's also, I don't feel as guilty about it. So that's good. But, I was going to say, one book that I read, or one podcast actually, that I listened to, was Podcast Master, and it's by Ben Green, who's the producer now of the Totally Football Show. And that his book is both a book that I read on Kindle, and then he's also got a podcast for it, and it's like 6 or 7 episodes, and it was like it was the best thing that I could have done in terms of getting into like making a podcast. So maybe on your 20 hours if you're interested in that kind of thing, which I like the technical side of it. So that's there. But if not, I just thought that I'd pass that along.
No, I'll definitely check that out. I need all the help I can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Kev.
And for me, it's I've listened. Kevin, you mentioned you listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm sure not all of them are sports related. I listen to a lot of other things that I think have influenced this show. And I have a couple of friends that, like, I don't know if you've ever listened to This American Life or anything like that, but it's kind of a big thing here in the States. And people have gone like, "You're not Ira Glass. Could you please, put a little bit more enthusiasm maybe in your voice?" And I'm like, this is me. I'm just going to be me on here. So it's just the way it's going to go. But anyway,
don't change anything.
Yeah, no.
I found that if you just be you, it's way better than if you try to be something you're not, because that comes off as not genuine, and nobody wants to hear that. Over the long run, you'll be exposed if you do that, I think. So,
yeah, absolutely.
But so we've had 2 matches this week. One of them didn't really go the way we would have hoped, and a bit of deja vu maybe. But Ray, I think you were at the Derby County match. Am I correct in saying that?
I was going to go, but I actually bailed out. Ugh.
Oh, well, I mean, you got 2 hours of your life that you didn't have to worry about, and maybe you could have watched it on the BBC. So
I did. I watched it on BBC, and I saved some money. So yeah,
it's worth it. And I'll be honest, I always hate when, even I know it's a cup match, and I know it's on TV, so that probably like lessens people's likelihood to go. But I always hate seeing just an end of the ground empty. It always feels like I don't know. The atmosphere always feels different with that, and maybe I can't say anything probably living here, but and not being on there. But anyway, that's just something I noticed when I was watching it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I actually said the same thing to my wife. I was watching the telly, thinking, look at those empty seats. And then she looked at me and was like, "Well, you could have been there." I was like, "Yeah, maybe, yeah." So I shut up after that.
So I mean, looking at the lineup, either of you have kind of any thoughts on the initial team that we put out, and were you surprised that we went with the 3 center backs with Ramsey playing on the right side? And I don't know, Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'd say that the squad as a whole, I mean, you think he's either going to go with youth or go with experience, depending on how seriously we're taking the tie. And he kind of sat on the fence a bit, I thought. Mm-hmm. I thought we were just maybe one experienced player short of a team that could get us through. And I'm not sure who I can point the finger at as to the weakest link. But yeah, I mean, Slattery wasn't incredible, in my opinion, the first time round. And he went with Kane Ramsey and with Magic Johnson as well.
Magic Johnson.
And then Ray, do you have any? I mean, what were your thoughts initially on the team selection? Because I think Kevin's done a good job of kind of summing it up, where it just seemed like we were one player short somewhere, but I'm not sure where either.
No, I don't think I was looking at the lineup thinking, Gunn. I knew Gunn was going to start. Uh-huh. And I'm happy with the formation. I've got no problem with that formation. And maybe I was a little bit surprised that Johnson had a more prominent role as he did, because I mean, where he played him on the left wing back role as well. I mean, we had Target on the bench that could have played there. But then, like Kev said, it depends on how serious he wanted to take this competition. But with the team that he put out, he must have thought that this was going to win the game. Yeah, absolutely. So we went back to school. My semester has started on Wednesday. With classes, and so my schedule, we had somebody retire, so now my schedule means I teach during this period, so I didn't get to see any of it on the day, which is not normal, and my schedule last semester was much different. So I saw the lineup come out because I was on my prep period then, and then I was looking at it going like, I don't know what we're going to play, and I thought it was going to be a back 4 initially, but we went with kind of the wing back system with Cedric on one side and Johnson on the other. And then we switched at a halftime with Johnson, I think, getting an early yellow card and coming off, and us moving to a back 4. And the manager spoke kind of that we seem to be kind of one player short
across the board. If we go with the back four, we're not quite solid enough. But if we go with the back three, then we kind of lack something up front, and maybe that's due to injury. Maybe it's due just to the quality of the players. But granted, we scored two goals when we went to a back four, but we also conceded two, and so I think that shows that vulnerability there that we have. But it's difficult to kind of look at anybody in the team and really blame it on them. I know a lot of people were on Elianusi's case a little bit, and we maybe haven't seen as much from him this season, and I was really hoping he was going to be good, partially because my family is from Norway a little bit, and I was hoping he was going to be, I want a reason to cheer for him, I think, but it just wasn't quite there. But once Redmond came on, and we switched the formation around, I think we looked a little bit more dangerous. Yeah, I mean, you can look at the formation and say we could play forward at the back. It was either a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-4-3. I think you could switch either way, and as we did. And then looking at, Elianusi, I don't know, he's got a lot of critics, and he did come with a big reputation of goals and assists at Basel, albeit it was, the Swiss league, it's a lot different. But to me, he hasn't taken his chances whenever he has been given a run. This is an important game for him to start in an FA Cup replay like this, being one of the, more elderly players in the team as well. You would have thought he would have taken these chances, but he's still not performing well.
I mean, Elianusi, he has been a bit of a damp squib this season, but a cross that he put into long at the far post was sublime, and
Absolutely.
I think
he has his
we
moments.
can forgive him for that.
But overall, the result, I think one of the things that we'll look back on and say and be really upset about, I guess, is the fact that we blew a 2-0 lead again to a championship side. But we are, right now we're still bottom half of the table. Derby are pushing to to at least be in the playoffs for promotion. And so a lot of people like to say that there's not that much between the championship, the upper side of the championship, and the lower half of the Premier League. They're kind of interchangeable. So, if Derby were to come up, would they? I think they'd beat teams like Huddersfield and they'd give other teams a run for their money. And so I don't know. This wasn't a full strength side for us, I don't think. And it is disappointing, I think, to crash out of the cup that way. But I think the more important thing for the team right now is what we're doing in the Premier League and kind of the overall changes that are being introduced at the club.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, is this a big blow for the team, or can we move forward? And will people forget about this if we go on to maybe climb up a few more places in the Premier League and really put in a good showing? Is anybody going to remember the fact that we did this?
No, I think at the time of the exit, I was gutted about it. I was just because we blew another 2-goal lead, and we went out on penalties. Fine. At the time, I was gutted, but then looking at it now, especially as we what we did on Saturday as well, we've got 2 free weekends now. We've got 10 days off before the next game. Seeing that we've got Palace, Burnley and Cardiff playing next as well. Massive games there. And I want 9 points out of all of those. So I'm thinking now, 100% concentration. They can rest for everything into staying into the Premier League now. So I think in the long run, no one's going to remember that we got knocked out by Derby.
It is embarrassing, but we'll get over it.
Yesterday I did put out a tweet because I was sitting watching the game and I was really, really enjoying watching the team play. And it was just before we conceded, but just watching the pressing, watching the team just go and everybody be super committed, and that goal from James Ward-Prowse, and we're moving forward a little bit now, but just all of that. And I just tweeted, if you're not enjoying watching the team right now, I don't know what to say. It feels, it feels a lot different just watching the team play. And we didn't quite have it on Wednesday, but we definitely had it yesterday. And all of the comments bar one were positive. And one guy says, we blew a 2-0 lead with 15 minutes to play against a championship team. And that was the second time they'd done it in less than 2 weeks. And yes, that is very true. But the overwhelming sentiment is that, there's something going on at the team that is much improved from recent seasons, whether it's under Hughes or Pellegrino or even Puel, I think. And I don't know. I think we can all kind of be excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the stats that Hasenhüttl, so his win percentage at home now, I think Hughes was 10%, Pellegrino was 27%, and Hasenhüttl was 50% now. That's just home wins. So even the eye test, you look and you can see how much the desire that everybody's got. I mean, James Ward-Prowse's goal yesterday, you could see his urgency to get onto the ball. He's like a new player. Romeu's playing the best of his career. Bednarek's playing the best at the moment. Everybody seems to be playing. And Hasenhüttl, at the end of the games, you can see his passion. You can see him come onto the field and he's hugging every single player. I can't remember the last time we saw that at Saints.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting time to be a fan. I mean, we throw away 2-goal leads against the Championship side twice in succession, but then we beat not reasonably strong opposition 2-1 back to back. We get back to back wins. We win at home. Every player looks like they're giving 100%, and it's difficult to fault anybody at the moment. Everyone's giving their all, and the results are coming, and it's just a really, really good time to be a Saints fan now. Yeah,
and Ings looking good as well. He looked good yesterday, and Højbjerg returning. I think that was massively important. Vestergaard's, settling a bit, and we've still got Ryan Bertrand to come back as well, and I think that wing back role will suit him, and Lamina. Yeah, their wing back role would definitely suit Ryan Bertrand.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, and it's been nice to see. I mean, I think you think about some of the players that were kind of excluded under Hughes, and you look at the impact they've had coming back into the team. You think specifically of Romeu and Bednarek, I think have been the two for me. It's been amazing to watch them go. And you look early in the season, Bednarek had more appearances for Poland than he did for Saints, and you wonder, I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to the manager almost all the time and say maybe there's something he's just not seeing. But I mean, you look at all the starts that Wesley Hood had, and then what we've got now in the back three. And granted, they're not perfect, but I think Bednarek yesterday had another just fantastic game.
Yeah, I mean, me and Kev have been fans of Bednarek for a long time. We mentioned it on our show, didn't we? What a great World Cup that he had, and we were scratching our heads as to why, what's Mark Hughes seeing that he doesn't like in him, and why is he, persistently playing Hoot? And
not only that, I mean, he's ignored a lot of the youth that we've seen coming through. Valerie's cemented himself into the side there and looks fairly comfortable now. And so, we're seeing Ramsey and Slattery
and Magic Johnson
coming in. Magic Johnson's coming in as well. Yeah, I mean, where were they under Hughes? I mean, it's pretty horrid indictment of Hughes, isn't it?
Yeah, Hughes sent all these players out on loan as well. Whether that was Hughes or not, I don't know whether he had much to say about it. But yeah, a lot of our not necessarily young youth players, but a lot of the players on the fringes like Sims and Hesketh, they all went out on loan, which was really disappointing.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing that brings in now is a lot of them came back from loan or are coming back, sure, whether that's injury or whatever. And now we don't have a cup to fill up some of those matches where you would think maybe they would get a chance. So, I mean, I guess, do they just go down and play under 23s now, or do you think that some of them will get a chance to actually impact the first team?
Well, I'd like to think that Sims will, get his chances. I mean, I'm surprised that he wasn't. I think he's fit at the moment, isn't he? So I was surprised that he didn't have at least a bench against Derby in the Cup. That was a little bit surprising.
And Gallagher as well. I mean, he hasn't.
Really Gallagher's coming in now, isn't he? He's getting his chances off the bench.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for them to find their way in. But I also think that Hasenhüttl will bring them into first team training for sure. And then, if they are showing something and one of the other guys, one of the senior guys is not, I think he'll actually get the chance. Whereas I think Hughes had made his selection in terms of who was going to play, and that was it. And if you were seen as somebody who wasn't good enough, you were never going to be good enough. And I think that's a really flawed philosophy, because football players get better or, go through bad runs of form, and some of these kids are going to learn things from week to week, and maybe it just takes them scoring a goal in training or beating a player in training or whatever for them to get some confidence and be ready to go and maybe deserve that shot. So I think the way that Hasenhüttl has managed the squad so far has been really, really impressive. And whether that's just because the guy managing the squad before didn't do such a good job, or he is just really that great, we'll wait and see. But I'm leaning towards that he's just that great. But because I'm firmly on, I bought a first class ticket on this train, I think. So
absolutely. I mean, you can see that with Ward-Prowse. He's given him a chance. I mean, last season, he was nowhere. And I always said he wasn't quick enough to play wing and he wasn't strong enough to play in the middle. But Hasenhüttl's given him something else. He's a new player. He's given him that confidence, and he's playing so well at the moment. I've never seen him play like this.
And I think we can just jump into yesterday's match and talk. You mentioned the goal earlier, but it's even one of the things that I wrote down in my notes, where that ball to midfield, I think Højbjerg doesn't even win the header, but Ward-Prowse is first to kind of the loose ball or the second ball, and he holds off a defender, and that's something that we wouldn't have seen from him, I think, last season or even maybe earlier this season.
Yeah, it's the desire to get to the ball. I think it was Gay as well in the middle, who's no slouch. He's a decent player. He's nice and strong, and he just won the ball with him. Desire to get to the ball. And, he could have passed. He carried on and thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go at it. And we all know he can strike a football. And brilliant goal.
Kevin, anything yesterday in yesterday's match that really kind of stood out to you, maybe aside from that James Ward-Prowse goal or finish?
I mean, just James Ward-Prowse's whole performance on and off the ball, he just seemed to be in control right there. I mean, like Ray said, there was doubts before about whether he could play a central role like that. But yeah, he's definitely proved himself there. But Bednarek is the other standout player from yesterday's match. Just outstanding. And you know that when we go 2-0 up, we're going to be a lot more nervous watching the match than when we're 1-0 up. And I mean, towards the end of the match, we definitely, it was what we call squeaky bum time, as Ferguson would say. But no, Bednarek was just there, and not just getting tackles in and clearing the balls away, but he's managing to get balls through to midfield and creating plays as well. So I don't know. It's a tough. I mean, we always choose our man of the match, but it's going to be a tough one between Ward-Prowse and Bednarek. Yeah, I mean,
Bednarek's just proving Mark Hughes wrong every day, isn't he? I hope he's watching.
I don't think he is. But I mean, looking at the team, I thought there was a noticeable injection of maybe enthusiasm or commitment, and I don't think it's anybody's fault that it wasn't there midweek. But I do think that Højbjerg definitely is bringing something to the team, and I was. He's been out for 4 matches. You worry about a little bit of rustiness or whatever, and not quite having match fitness, because I know that's the playing a game is really the only way to get into that. But the ball he put through for Redmond in the first half, when Redmond went just wide, I just thought like that. We've kind of missed that, and Højbjerg seemed to be just kind of everywhere, along with Ward-Prowse and Romeu in the midfield. That I was really impressed. And I like Lamina, but you wonder when he's fit, how are you going to demote somebody, or how are you going to take somebody out of the squad and say, hey, you've been great, but this guy needs to come back in now?
Well, I don't think you can put Lamina straight back in there now, because I mean, we know how important Højbjerg is. I mean, to Hasenhüttl as well, he's made him the captain while Bertrand's been out, so he's taken on that leadership role as well. And don't forget, like Ward-Prowse and Romeu had 120 minutes against Derby, and I didn't know how fit they were going to be for the Everton game, but and another
Redmond did as well.
But Redmond come on at half time, didn't he, in the Derby game? But so much energy throughout the midfield in particular.
Yeah, and you wonder, and depending on the system that we play, who's going to be the most tired. And I kind of think that most center backs can basically play all the time, and they should be okay. Goalkeepers can basically play all the time, and you think that in this system that we play, where we press so much and so high, that it's actually probably the guys in the front and the guys on the wings, the wing backs, that really are going to do the most running, but the guys in the midfield have to cover a lot of ground, especially with the wing backs playing so wide. So it's a lot to ask of the players, and I think as long as you were getting results and as long as the fans are appreciating what they're seeing, even if we do kind of drop results and get knocked out of the cup, I think as long as the fans are appreciating it and the players feel like that, I think that gives you a little bit more, you maybe are a little bit more willing to put in that effort. Whereas if we're not getting results, if we were losing game after game and the fans were booming and stuff, then I think you would see guys just kind of start to retreat a little bit and maybe just go 1 or 2% less, or 3, maybe 5% less. And I think that would be all the difference in terms of us turning the season around or not.
Well, I mean, what do you think of Ings, do you think he's up to full fitness yet?
In terms of Ings, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's fully back or whatever. And he definitely is. I mean, there's no question he's the best forward, the best striker we have, right? Like there's nobody that's going to even challenge him for that spot. But I am worried about his fitness moving all the way forward in terms of can he do it in this system, because it's going to be fairly difficult for him. But I don't know. What do you think, Kevin?
I mean, he seemed to really get involved, but I don't know. Just it was a little bit patchy, Like you can see him really running for about 15, 20 minutes, and then you wouldn't see much of him. Like you had to be brought off for Shane Long towards the end of the second half. But I mean, he did put a few balls through and make a few decent runs, and I think Redmond got on the end of Ennings' ball for that freak goal that put us 2-0 up. So I mean, he's definitely put in a good effort, but I don't know. I'm not entirely sure whether he's fully fit or not.
I think it really depends with Ings in particular. I think it depends on whether they're playing one up front or two up front. I think the Everton game, I think they were playing Redmond just behind him. I think when you look at Ings, you don't really consider him to have a high, massive energy anyway. And if he's getting the service from like a Redmond playing through the centre there, I think it benefits him. And when you've got Charlie Austin as well, who we all know doesn't like, to run around an awful lot. We've got Shane Long that can play there as well. So maybe Shane Long and Ings up front. I think it works better for us.
My other question was going to be, how is Stuart Armstrong going to get back into the side in that case?
I think it depends on maybe the system that we wind up playing. If we play the 3-4-3, I think he can play up there. But if we play with I don't know, if you play with looked to be a 3-man midfield yesterday, I'm not sure that he gets in there. And I think if we were to play a 4-2-3-1, I think he could play in the number 10 role. But I think even when he played on Wednesday night, where you had him, I think at one point you had him, Redmond, and Elyounoussi plus Shane Long all in the field, and it wasn't, I don't know, it didn't quite work as well as maybe we would have thought with all those attacking players. It would seem a little bit top heavy, and but also like nobody was quite sure what was going on, and maybe we, I don't know. I think that maybe needs some help, but I think you saw what the manager's choice was, because Elyounoussi wasn't even in the squad yesterday. He didn't even make the bench. So I don't know. I thought that Armstrong had been unlucky maybe to not get as much playing time early on under Hughes, and I think that I think he is really, really a quality player, and I don't know, maybe he brings some calmness to Redmond and gives him a little bit more assuredness, maybe as playing alongside him, I guess.
It's a very, very good problem to have, though. You've got all these players that, instead of saying, we can't play him, we're looking at it another way and saying, well, we've got all these decent players that are all playing very well. How can we fit them in? It just makes a change to actually talking positive about all of them.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't very long ago that we were all saying, hey, the squad's just full of average players. We need to upgrade, right? I mean, how long? Yeah. We're talking 6 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
So
I'm they've all upgraded themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Hasenhüttl upgrade, I think, has worked.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday we, again, in a match where we looked good and played well and managed to win, we didn't have very much possession. We basically gave Everton the ball, and we allowed them to make mistakes, basically, and we allowed them. We pressed them into doing that stuff. So I mean, does that style of play? I mean, you look at the stats and you go, man, we didn't hardly even touch the ball. But I mean, doesn't matter.
No, not when you're looking at the result in the end. But I mean, it wasn't that bad, was it? Was it like 45% possession we had? I don't know. I haven't 39. Oh, 39 was it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's more than we had against Leicester or Chelsea. So we did see a lot more of the ball, but yeah, it's clearly not our game to boss possession, and yeah, we do wait for them to slip up and go for the jugular with that one.
I mean, it's quite the opposite of Claude Puel just 2 seasons ago, where we always seemed to dominate the ball, but we didn't do anything with it, and I think you could see that with Claude Puel's Leicester team where they didn't quite have that. And you would think, like, watching how Ranieri did it when he was there, you basically, you give the other team the ball and then you punish them as soon as they make a mistake. And I think for me, I think that's exciting because it always, you never quite feel comfortable when we're defending because the other team has so many chances that, eventually they're going to capitalize on one of them, but you also know that our chances are going to come quickly and they're going to be, flashes. And so you're kind of always on the edge of your seat. And so just as a fan that's just watching the game, I think now maybe Southampton is even one of those teams where the neutral might actually tune in and watch, whereas is when we were playing under Claude Puel and under Pellegrino, that was never going to happen.
No, I mean, me and Kev have had arguments about Claude Puel before, about his style of play. You still really like him and you still think he's not getting a fair shake at Leicester, but yeah, I mean, I would much rather play, with a better shape, midfield defensively, hold your position. Let's make them make the mistake, and when they do, punish them. And I think, like you said, with Puel, there's just no creativity there in his play, and the same with Pellegrino. It was just boring to watch. So yeah, the way we are right now, I think there's going to be a lot of neutral fans that are going to want to watch us.
Definitely. I mean, I'd rather we're in the situation that we are now than we were under Puel, but I just don't think we really had to go through all of that with Pellegrino and Hughes, which is basically an extension of the same thing. Yeah. In order to get here. And
I would have to agree with you, Kevin, that I think Puel, when he was in France, I think people actually they really appreciated the way he coached, and they appreciated his management, they appreciated the style. He hasn't been warmly welcomed here, or I say here, but in England. And listening to the Total Saints podcast, listening to Adam Leach talk, everybody seems to think he is the nicest man around. And so, for me, I think that's great. And I think there is something to the fact that he's just not quite understood, and he isn't probably getting a fair shake. But seeing the Puel out hashtag still be a thing, and having Leicester fans tweet Southampton fans and say, like, "Oh, we understand what you guys were talking about," and now all the journalists and everybody are talking about the same thing. Whereas, like, Leicester, what do you really expect from him? Look at where you are on the table, all this stuff, and so just be happy. But I don't know, it's a difficult thing, but. Luckily, he's not our manager anymore, so probably don't have to talk about it. So,
I just don't think his style suits the Premier League.
Yeah,
simple.
I mean, I think it can, but I mean, not for Saints, and clearly not for Leicester now either. But maybe he'll find his club in the end.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke a little bit about Shane Long earlier. He was brought on for Ings yesterday. In the 74th minute-ish, and at that point, Everton were pushing. I don't think they had scored yet, but they were definitely pouring forward, and I think having Long on the counterattack and having Redmond up there to support him, I think that is a recipe for us to get a third goal at some point, even if Shane Long has to bounce it off a defender or have Kasper Schmeichel punch it into the goal for him, or whatever the goalkeeper is. I think that's a decent kind of plan for late in the game, and so especially if we do have a lead. But I mean, yesterday as time's winding down, I mean, how nervous were you that the second goal was coming for Everton?
Well, this is my negative of the game yesterday. We still cannot see these games out. It's far more nervy than it should have been. I think Hasenhüttl said at the end of the game that we could have had 4 or 5 goals, and we could have done. I mean, Stevens had a header as well. It could have been 3-0 up.
Mm-hmm.
If that goes in, I still think Saints sit back and they take on pressure. And whenever there's an aerial ball that comes into the box, I almost hide because you know what's going to happen. I mean, we saw the derby in midweek. You're 2-1 up, 82nd minute equaliser, unmarked, free header. It's just, why do they keep doing this? I mean, they should have been far more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, we should have been ahead at half-time as it was anyway. But yeah, as we got to 90 minutes, I just put pen to paper and wrote, I can see it in front of me here, best 90 minutes I've seen us play this season. And then just as I wrote that, Sigurdsson managed to bang one in.
One of the things that always happens is I I put out the match reviews, the mini match reviews based on usually the number of minutes of stoppage time. Yesterday I didn't go for the full 8 because I went with the 4. But I had something written, and my match starts at 9:00. So like the second half of the game, I'm literally stretching in my living room, like trying to get ready, because basically I'm going to run out of the house and get there just basically and run onto the field, and we're going to start playing. Like it's that. But I refuse to miss the match. So sometimes I pre-write those things. And of course, yesterday is one of those ones where it's all set out to go and everything, and then they score, and then I have to go back and change it, and it's like, oh man. and then we have like all the stoppage time minutes, and I was like, I don't have time to change it. I just have to let it go. Like we're just going to go with 4 because that's what they put on the board. And I was just like, I was freaking out a little bit, man, because I thought for sure like they were just waiting for Everton to score, and then they were going to blow the whistle.
Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, you could see Hasenhüttl as well at the end. He was just like, his fists were clenched when that corner came in as well, and Pickford come up. I was like, no.
He was livid.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely livid. And I was the mirror image of him at home, just going like, come on, blow them.
Pacing up and down, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it made for a nervy little ending, but that's okay. But I think
I would rather have a nice 3-0 win and Saints are comfortable, but I don't think I've ever said Saints are comfortable in one sentence. I
mean, even those couple of seasons where we finished near European places, we were never doing it comfortably. We were never points clear on the last day and just had to just hang out and not do anything. There was always some result that was making the difference. So it's one of those. I think one of the negatives yesterday though is the injury to Targett. He came off with what looks to be some sort of knee injury that I think he fouled somebody trying to break up a counterattack, and it didn't work. Luckily, Richarlison, I think, botched the whole thing, so that's okay. But I mean, are we worried about that? Are you guys worried about that at all in terms of going forward? We still have Bertrand out. We have, granted, we have a lot of time between matches now, so maybe he's back. But any worry there for you?
I think if you listen to our show, you can see that I've been really critical of Matt Targett. I think when me and Kev went, what game did we go to over Christmas? West Ham game, wasn't it? I thought Targett was awful in that game, and I don't think he's played well this season at all. But yesterday, I thought he looked good. For the short time that he had, he was up and down that left quite a lot, and he was causing some problems. And so, yeah, and in terms of like Bertrand not being back, it is a bit of a blow that we've got no one there. But then you've got Ramsey that can play over there, I suppose. You've got Johnson who can play there. You've got Cedric played over there quite a bit. I think he'd done that in midweek against Derby as well. So, yeah, I think we have got people down. I'm not sure how serious the injury is yet.
Right. I think my biggest fear with some of the people that we have that are playing kind of right, left back or wing back or whatever is I don't trust them in a back 4. I think in a back 5 or a back 3 with 3 center backs where they have a little bit more protection, I think that Valerie is fine. I think that Targett is fine. But I thought, like, even when you go back to Cardiff, they were exposed when there was a back 4. And so I worry about that a little bit. I think Targett is, I think in a lot of ways, Targett is a lot like James Ward-Prowse of maybe a year or two ago, where he's got a lot of qualities that are good, but he doesn't have the pace. He doesn't have the strength. He is missing some of those other things, some of those physical attributes maybe that we would like to see. Whereas Cedric is fast. I wouldn't say he's super strong, but he's pretty fit and he can get up and down. He, I guess, cannot cross the ball with his left foot because he keeps checking back onto his right. But I don't know. I want to like Matt Targett. I do like Matt Targett, but I can see what you're saying in terms of him kind of lacking a little bit this season.
Yeah, and he's tried out Targett as left back in a back 4 against Cardiff and against Derby as well, and it hasn't worked. And he does have good performances, and I think yesterday was one of them, and he was linking up really well with Redmond. But yeah, that was quite short. So I think that's a disappointment because I was really getting excited about what I saw.
Yeah, it's a shame. I'm not over the moon about him not being there, but I just don't think it's going to be a massive problem. As I say, we've got 10 days off now, so I don't know how bad his injury is.
I mean, we may have Bertrand back by that time.
And we may have Bertrand back as well. So yeah,
no idea.
And I think Bertrand works in a flat back 4, and he works as a wing back as well. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we have some questions to get to. I think we should do that. One of the things that I do on the show is now we have a Patreon account at patreon.com/SFC delivery. And patrons get priority for having their questions answered. So we'll go through their questions first, and then you guys have some questions from your Facebook page. And I believe Kevin is on there as well. So we'll get to some of these, but coming from the patrons who are now messaging me on the app as we talk. So hold on. It says, with the absence of Yoshida, this is from Dave Lee. He says, your opinions and overall assessment of Stevens over the past 4 matches. So, of course, Yoshida was playing in the center of that back three. He's away at the Asian game or the Asian Cup. What have you made of Stevens so far in his absence?
I'm a fan of Stevens. I like him. I've always been a fan of him. I think he does have those little lapses sometimes where he can be a little bit sloppy. But I think when we're playing with the back five or the back three, I think he has got that freedom to go forward. And we do see Vestergaard and him go forward quite a lot with the ball. And when he does, I think they had an assist in the Derby game, I want to say. Was it the midweek Derby game? He put the assist through for the first goal. So yeah, he has got some qualities, and I've always been a big fan of Jack Stevens, and could have had a goal yesterday as well. Should have had a goal yesterday.
Yeah, that header. So yeah, no, I don't know in whose place Yoshida's gonna come in. It's a tough one.
Yeah, well, especially with Bednarek playing the way he is, and Vestergaard looks like he's settling in.
Well, once again, it's a decent problem to have, because we were so worried about having these mediocre players, and I think that all of them maybe do. None of them are Van Dijk, right? And I know it's a curse word, basically. Maybe I should beep that out, but it's they have shown themselves to be a little bit more than what we were seeing before, and I really appreciate that. And I do look at the goal that we conceded late on to Derby and look and say, that's Saints of last couple of seasons, and just the communication wasn't quite there. But once again, we were at a back four, not a back three. You switch games or switch systems in the middle of a match, and we get beat. So, what really can you do? There's another one here from a patron, and it says, considering the lack of time left in the transfer window, do you think we will actually sign anybody? If so, do you have any idea? And if not, do you think there will be any more outgoings?
I'm not into transfer rumours. I try and stay away from it. I think we could possibly get one, but what we need, I'm not quite sure. And I mean you're hearing rumours of Lookman as well. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. As for players leaving, I mean, we still need to get rid of Hoot. I don't know what's going on with Fraser Forster, because there were rumours that he could be, back in the fold. So, I mean, I'd like to see both of those out to make up some money for transfers coming in.
We've seen Gabbiadini go out and Davis go out. So, I mean, we're a bit lighter financially. So I suppose there is the space there to get someone in. But yeah, when we're here discussing how players that are coming back from injury are going to fit into the squad, I don't see what exactly it is that we need. It's got to be a very special player for us to buy someone now.
Yeah, it's going to have to be like a world-class centre-back, but then the players that we've got are going to have to sit back, like you say. And with the midfielders that we've got playing the way they are, I don't want to see them taken out. You could say, okay, well, let's just get cover, because we know how injury-prone Austin and Ings are, and Long is, goal-shy. With Gabbiadini gone now, maybe we could get another striker in, but don't forget, we still have Carrillo. We could call him back.
Mm-hmm. I think the only one that I've seen in terms of rumours is Jean-Kevin Augustin.
Yeah.
He's playing for Leipzig. He looks like he could be the next Sadio Mane. But
oh, God.
Yeah.
So he's going to go to Liverpool in a couple of years, yeah?
Well, at least we can have a good time along the way.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. But, like you said, I think with the way this manager is using some of the youth players, and I still think the squad is quite bloated, especially when we talk about all those guys who are not there yet. I think we're likely to see more people leave than we are to bring anybody in. And I think maybe over the summer, when you have some time and you can really evaluate and look at contracts and stuff like that, I think maybe then we'll get a player or two. But I mean, we've been pretty quiet in terms of the people we've been linked with, and the club generally does a pretty good job of keeping it tight-lipped, I guess. But I think the best source we have for that is listening to the Total Saints podcast and Adam, because he's in there in the press conferences and stuff, and he hasn't said that we're really linked with anybody. So I just kind of leave it at that. And everybody on the internet who's got, whose newly found Saints #1 news account has 16 followers. Those people are great, and I appreciate the people doing that. But it's just I refuse to get caught up in that, just simply because I don't have time. I can't pretend to know all that stuff, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, you can dare to dream, but I mean, Hasenhüttl's got to leave his mark on the side at some point, be that in January or in the summer. So we'll see.
I'm happy in the summer, yeah. I'm happy for it. I'm comfortable with the team that we've got right now.
So I think you guys had some questions from your Facebook page, if you wanted to get some of those in here.
Yeah, okay. I got a question from Kevin McGee. He says, how far do you think Ralph Hasenhüttl can get us? How are we thinking about Europe again?
Wow. It's a bit early, I think, to be thinking about that. He's going to be trying to keep us up this season. I don't even see us challenging for Europe next season. I think it's got to be part of a longer-term plan. But yeah, I think he is the manager that can get us back into those European places. I just think we've got a long way to go.
I think it's easy to get carried away when you've had back-to-back wins. I can't help but think if Hasenhüttl had started with us at the start of the season, with a full summer of training, who knows where we'd be in the league now. And I think if we stay up, I know you've got to take it one game at a time, we'll be roughly where we are right now, I think. And then next season, we'll see. I think the real challenge will be trying to keep hold of him. Because, if we do survive, and then if we do get into Europe in the next couple of seasons, just think of the possibilities that, lay before him personally. And then we have to go through the whole Pochettino and Koeman saga all over again. We just get these new managers in and they go and better themselves, and then we go and get Mark Hughes.
Well, and I think he was pretty open when he signed on that was part of the deal. He hadn't gotten the big kind of job offer that he wanted, and he was going to do a good job here and show himself well, and then that's good for him in terms of his career. And so I don't know. I think if that happens, I think he'll definitely be here next season. And now that I've said that, he'll be gone in the summer, but I think he'll be here next season. And I think as well as we do, I think if we approach those European places, people will look at that and say that the style of football is good. It's entertaining to watch. The results are there. It's time to offer this guy a pretty big position. And I think at that point he will probably take it. And I don't think I'll have any ill will towards him at that point, but it would be hard to see us getting into Europe. And next season, if we were to get there, I think there would need to be some additions to the squad, because just look at what our you think about early round Europa League games and the squads that some of these guys put out. Like think about Arsenal and Chelsea, the squads they put out. When we do that, when we look at our cup team, I'm not sure they're good enough to get through a night, whether you have to go to Ukraine or not. I'm not sure they can do that on a Thursday night and then turn around and do it again on a Sunday. I'm not sure that our squad is strong enough to do that right now. Granted, maybe after, what is that? It's a few transfer windows away. Maybe we'd be ready for it, but I'm not sure we're there yet.
No, I totally agree with that.
I think we've got the budget for it, though.
But it depends on how much he wants to put into the club, doesn't it? And I'm guessing, I don't know. I mean, is it a case of in order to buy big, you need to sell a lot more?
I guess so. I mean, we get those youth players that we got coming through. I guess they're going to be going off to if they have a successful season with us, they'll be going off to the big clubs as well. So, I mean, we can continue doing our Saints model. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, you can't go into Europe without the squad depth. And we've seen how detrimental it's been to Burnley's season.
Yeah, Burnley. Leicester.
Having an awful time. And I think Leicester made a fairly good go of it.
Oh, he did, yeah. But I mean, their league form has suffered.
But I mean, they lost most of their best players in that season.
There's another question Kevin wrote. I'm not sure he meant to put that on the podcast feed, but it's there. Do you remember that time you went to Legoland and it was pouring rain, and then the ride broke and it took your photos as you were walking back?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that was great. We went to Legoland, and it was a wet summer's day, as it usually is in England, and we went on this little dinosaur ride. We had our kids with us, and the ride breaks down. So we're like, and the people come in, we have to get up, and we're walking through like all the scenery, and like the fairground rides where it takes your picture.
Mm-hmm.
It snapped us walking on the track, and we got a picture of it because it was hilarious. But yeah, it was a good day. I'm glad he still remembers that.
It's like travelling on the trains anywhere in Britain, basically.
Just pictures all the time.
Yeah.
Or the breakdown. Which one?
Yeah, just the breakdown and the misery. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were very fortunate while we were there that we didn't have anything like that. There was one time on the tube when we were in London that our side didn't seem to be going anywhere, and I just told my wife, like, jump out, just get out, we'll go to the other side. The other side's going, just go. And we did, and it turned out to be a good decision. But other than that, totally fine. So we lucked out.
I've been on match day, like on a train, and the line's been flooded, and it's 3 or 4 hours before the match, and it's you're worried whether you're going to get there for kickoff or not. Yeah, it's not fun. And
it's not like they reimburse you, which is something I still don't quite understand.
No, of course not. No,
it's not Japan.
All right, so we have a couple of questions from Instagram as well. Chris_graphics asked, is JWP ahead of Armstrong now? We kind of talked about that already. Mad Docs Imagery, I think, is that. Says, where's Gao? The answer is, I don't think any of us know, so we can't really do anything. And then Brian McGreevy says, when Yoshida comes back, do you think he will get in the starting lineup? And if so, for who? We kind of spoke about that a little bit. The only one we have is from EWINTER Tattoos. He says, Ralph was at the Q&A with the fans recently, mentioned Buffal and Carrillo returning in the summer. Your thoughts? I have a question. Ralph decided to go turtleneck underneath the sport coat or the blazer. Everybody else was in a tie. I don't know how you feel about that. I don't live in a turtleneck area. We're not big turtleneck people. And on the central coast of California, but I don't know what you thought about the fashion sense there.
That's more of a San Francisco thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no problem with it. It was fine.
Yeah, no, he can wear what he wants. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do we see Buffal maybe having a chance to come back? And do you think Carrillo comes back and plays a part in this, or do you think they would even fit in the system?
Actually, it was one of the questions that I had for you, Matt, was about Buffal. Like, does he have a role under Ralph Hasenhüttl? I guess it really depends on him. And I promised that I would keep in touch of what he's doing, but I haven't looked at where he is. It depends on him. I just think if he's, we all know that Hasenhüttl likes a worker, and if he's going to be lazy about it, then of course, no, I don't think he's got a chance of getting in this team. But it's up to him. I mean, I still think he's a quality player. Just don't think it suited him where he was.
He's got the talent, clearly. I mean, we saw that wonder goal, but I'd love it if Hasenhüttl was the manager to get the best out of him and to actually make him work hard and turn him into the player that he can be.
Yeah, I guess for his price tag, I really, really want him to succeed. I want him to come back, and it would be so great for Hasenhüttl if he could find that that magic touch to get him playing and scoring.
I think for me, there's so much of it that goes on. So much of what happens with a player, I think, is when you start thinking about language barriers and all of these other things that, I don't know, I think things get lost in translation. I think you start to pick up on body cues, and I think about Mesut Ozil a lot in terms of how he's perceived by a lot of people, and just I think when I think of Buffal, I think the same thing. He doesn't seem to always give that 100% effort, and I think that we pick up on that, and then the maybe the limited communication between him and the coach, or him and the manager, maybe that kind of sealed his fate, and I think maybe you saw that with Hughes doing it with quite a few people. We just lost track of certain players, and Bednarak being one of them, JWP to a certain extent. And so to see, it seems like all of them were given a fresh chance when Hasenhüttl came back. And I think that just the act of sitting down and talking with each and all the players, I think really gave him a better sense of what that player was about and what the player could bring, and what the manager's expectations were. So I think that at the very least he'll be given a chance, and it may just be it's best if you move on, and so be it. And thanks for thanks for whatever it was, and the couple of wonder goals and all that stuff, and then we're done. But I don't know. I think that's where I stand on that. I think if Carrillo comes back and runs a lot, then I think Ralph will have him, and same thing with Buffal.
Yeah, I can't say anything more than that. There's not much to be said about Carrillo, really. I mean, I just don't think he wasn't really just good enough.
But again, it's another player that I haven't seen in Spain. I don't know what he's doing. He might be, lighting the league up.
Well,
Do you know what he's been up to, Matt?
I know that Buffal hasn't done all that much.
Has he been playing a lot though? Is it kind of like odds? He comes on for 10 minutes here and there, not given the chance, or is he starting games?
I'm not even sure. I think he's only got a goal and an assist, or 2 goals and an assist, or the other way around, or something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of, in terms of Carrillo, his stats for this season in terms of his Wikipedia have not even been updated. So I think that tells you all you need to know. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
Wow. But I think that the Hasenhüttl is willing to give kind of everybody a chance and at least bring them in. And I think that's a credit to him. And I think that if a player just chose not to be the right person, I think that at least we know that they were given a shot. And so I think that's good enough for me. But yeah, I mean, do you guys have anything else that you'd like to add before we kind of wrap this up?
What? God forbid, if Nathan Redmond gets injured and he's out for the rest of the season, how bad is that going to be for our survival?
I think that'd be huge.
Because we don't have these players to come off the bench and be game changers. I mean, he seems to be the only one, and we saw that against Derby. If he goes down, what have we got?
Well, man, that is I don't want to even think about that really, because I think he's been so good this year and so important. And I think you can just look to last year where we didn't have him in this form, and the difference that we see now, And so, obviously I think you Armstrong would be in there week in, week out probably, but you'd probably have to have either Elyounoussi or Johnson or somebody else, or Sims maybe coming in and doing that. And I just don't think that any of them right now are playing with as much confidence as Redmond is. And so, yeah, I think we would definitely be missing a game-changing type player. And I think Redmond's only going to get better. And I hope so. I hope he comes back to LA in the middle of the summer again to continue that work, because I will not be so shy as to drive the 3 hours to try to spy on him and do a little, what was that, Bielsa? Is that what it was?
Yes, Bielsa, yeah.
I'll yell questions at him from just on the other side of the freeway and try to get a recording. So we'll see.
Yeah, let us know.
I'll let you know from jail. I'll have to send it out in the 15-second clips, but I'll need you to put it up for me.
Did you have another question, Ray?
Oh yeah, sorry. I just wanted to talk about just very quickly. Elyounoussi, do we give up on him?
I don't think so. I don't think yet. Not yet. I think he's. I was really surprised, even in the Derby game, where he was running down the sideline at one point with the ball. He played a really poor ball into the middle of the field after, and I was surprised that he didn't have enough pace to get away from the guy. And I was really disappointed with his decision making. But I also think that he's being pushed now probably more than he's ever been pushed to get in the team, and in the pace of play and all of these other things, I think are going to be troublesome for him. And he's playing, I think, on the opposite side of the field than he plays for Norway. And I think he played on the other side of the field as well in previous seasons. So the people that watched him play in Basel, sorry, thank you. I think they were all really impressed with him, and they thought he was gonna fit in nicely. And so I still, for that reason, I think it's Adam is the guy who's the host of the previous Saints podcast before any of us ever got started. He's now a Basel season ticket holder, and he watched him play and he thought he was great. So I think because of that, and because I think he knows the English game as well, I think I would give him a little bit more rope.
Okay.
Okay, I've got one kind of fanboy question as a fan of the podcast. Yeah, I love this podcast and I love the intro, but where you've got the commentaries running and Alexander Yelagin, who's the commentator, he says, "Подача, Остин, все-таки забил." What match was that from? It's been bugging me for so long.
I'll be honest, I have no idea. I found it, and I was looking for. I'll be honest. This is where it comes from. Is the guy who does the Acast has a Spanish commentator talking about Nacho Monreal, and it's the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And I was looking for something, and I happened to come across the Russian. I think it's Russian, right? Yeah. And I think it's when he's scoring a penalty. I think, but I cannot remember what it was. But I have to assume it was one of maybe. I mean, did he score a penalty in maybe one of the Europa League matches? I can't even.
It wasn't a penalty because it says like passes to Austin, who actually scores.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
See, but yeah, no, he's the commentator. He gets on my nerves because you'll see something interesting happening on the pitch, and he'll be just talking about just some nonsense about they're singing when the Saints go marching in, and the England national team fans sing that when they're like, hang on, no, they don't. And they've already scored 3 goals, and he's still banging on about that. But
well, I'm sorry, I can't help you out with where it came from, but yeah, I was definitely purposely looking for something in another language that I think at least sounded exciting. And honestly, there's a couple of people who listen to the podcast that have asked me, can you just get rid of that one? Like they don't like that one.
I love that bit.
And I don't know if it's because it's Austin and they want somebody else in there or whatever it is, but it's I'm unwilling to quantify the time it took to put that whole thing together. But it's part of the reason that I don't want to change it.
No, fair enough. And he commentates on all the Premier League matches.
That's awesome. But I mean, I really appreciate you guys coming on the show, and I really appreciate you guys starting up the podcast and keeping it going. And thank you for the kind words that you had about this show, and I appreciate that very much. And I think I know part of the work that goes into it, and in terms of the sacrifices of time and family time and all the other stuff that goes into making the show. And so thank you guys for doing that, and then also being willing to come on here and talk and give up more time for that. So thanks, and I hope you guys continue to do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for letting us on as well. I mean, me and Kev have spoke about before. We'd love to have you on in that number as well at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great. I see the effort that you put in each and every week, and you're on your own as well, and you find the time. You got to deal with the time zone, and you still keep like high quality episodes. And you've had like over 105 now. Is that right?
This will be 106.
106, yeah, and you're a heck of a nice guy as well. So yeah.
And we've got a little surprise for you, just to say thanks.
Oh yeah. Actually, yeah.
It wouldn't be in that number without our in that number fan chants. And since we're coming on the show, we thought we'd dedicate one of our branded fan chants to you, Matthew Markstone.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So,
but bearing in mind, we haven't actually had much time to rehearse this.
We've rehearsed this a few times. So if it doesn't go particularly well with the delay and the lag and everything, we can always record it again.
I'm sure you'll love it.
And send it to you. But we hope you enjoy it.
Absolutely.
All right, you ready, Ray? Okay, why not? Markstone, Matthew Markstone. He's a stateside fan of SFC. From South California, he's the host of The Delivery. Listen to the podcast every week. Not just about soccer he will speak. When you're with Matt Markstone, you'll have a come on you Reds time. Burn up the Saints time. You'll know that we'll march on.
Guys, that's ridiculous. I was expecting like a one-liner chant. That was awesome, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, Kev's going to take all the credit for that because he wrote that.
I'm not. Yeah, they always get out of hand.
Oh, that's guys. That's sweet. Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe that. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, we love the podcast. It's a really sweet podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did. Thank you very much. That makes me feel really good. And
going to delete that. It's not going to make the final cut, don't you?
No, it's going to be the new intro, man.
Yeah, you like and move aside.
But thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said, I appreciate you guys coming on. And I'm looking forward to. I'd love to be a guest on the show. Whenever you guys have are interested. Wow, it was difficult to say for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you like, we'll get you on.
All right.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to repeating it.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys have to go record another one, so hopefully it goes well. And the funny thing is, you guys will release yours before I release mine, and even though the recording hours are switched, so hopefully it'll all be okay. And then before you go, just tell everybody once again where they can find you where they can find both your social media accounts and also where they can get the podcast.
Okay, so you can find us on Twitter at Number Podcast. You can find me at RayHunt84, and Kevin is at Moscow Mush. You can also email us on inthatnumberpodcast@gmail.com. If you've got any questions for our show, then yeah, please do so. We'll read them out. And obviously, go on our Twitter and find our Fantasy Football League pin and join our league. We read out the winners every single week. So yeah, get involved.
Yeah, I enjoy getting our ass kicked. So.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at that. It's been worse and worse the more I try. So we'll put all the links to that stuff in the show notes, and we'll put links to the podcast in there as well. And I'll have to go look at the Fantasy Football League. This is the difference between football fantasy podcast and then like a lot of the other stuff in America is you can only join like one league, and then if you're in another league, you have to manage another team. Whereas now I think like 10 or so leagues, and so it's just one team, and that's so much nicer than a lot of the other stuff. And I figure as long as I don't come in last, I think people will give me a little bit of credit. So I'm just trying to sit mid-table right now.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I try and do.
Yeah, my season's gone totally downhill. So.
Well, at least Saints are playing better, so that's all right.
Exactly.
But once again, thanks guys, and we'll do this again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. Thank you.
And that does it for this episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Ray and Kevin from the In That Number podcast. If you have not followed them already, be sure to do so. They are at Numbers Podcast, and Ray is at RayHunt84, and Kevin is at Moscow Mush. Ray is also on Instagram, although it's not Saints related, but the link is in the show notes if you are interested. If you're interested in getting a hold of them at all, you can send them an email at inthatnumberpodcast@gmail.com. They are a wonderful couple of guys. We talked for well over 2 hours about just podcasting and fandom and all that other stuff, and I really enjoyed all of it. So if you're not already supporting them and by listening or following along, please do that. You can also follow this show on Twitter at SFCDELL_IVERY. It's the same on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook at facebook.com/SFC Delivery. There is no underscore in the Facebook address. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe both to this show and to the In That Number podcast to make sure you do not miss future episodes. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we will have another episode next week with a member of the Southampton Women's Football Club. I am really looking forward to that. We'll also have a preview podcast up for patrons ahead of the Crystal Palace match. So that, again, is exciting. I'm staying busy. Apparently, I don't know how to take time off, but that's okay with me. If you're at all interested in the Patreon site to get that extra podcast, you can go over to patreon.com/SFC Delivery. In addition to getting the extra podcast episode, you also get access to a private chat, which is often where I ask and we talk about the game, we talk about matches, we talk about lineups, we talk about all that stuff. People ask random questions, and that's fine. We also get priority for answering your questions on the show as one of the benefits. So you can head over there and check that out. And there is a new website, southamptondelivery.com. Head over there and check it out. It's under construction at the moment, but hopefully we move along shortly, and it gets you a little bit more info, just in case. Patrons and listeners really help move this podcast along. The show has two special partners, Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page and now of the Southampton Football Club proper, do the logo for the show. Matt is a great guy. If you already don't support his artwork, you should do that. at We Are Southampton on Instagram. And the Southampton page is the official partner page of the show. They are growing on Twitter. If you're not already following them on Twitter, please do so. They have about 20,000 plus followers on Instagram, so you should head over there. Stay up to date with the news on the team. Jamie and the rest of the guys do a great job. They were on both last week and the week before. Fantastic. I cannot recommend their work enough. Like I said, we'll be back next week with another episode of the show. And I appreciate you listening as always. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. It always helps. But until then, remember that together, we march on. Also, just wanted to clear something up. We talked about Sofiane Boufal and Guido Carrillo during our question and answer section, and we didn't really have the stats in front of us. And for some reason, I didn't bother to look them up while we were talking, which is probably not great hosting. But I can tell you, Boufal has only scored 2 goals and had 1 assist this season. Neither of those have come since October, so early October. So not great from him, and he's getting plenty of minutes, it looks like, but he's just not getting the goals or the assists, playing mostly on the left. And Guido Carrillo, also not getting it done. He was not in the squad this week against Barcelona for the most recent match, but he does have 5 goals. None of those have come since December. So not the best for him either. So those are the guys we have out on loan. We had a question about it. We just didn't answer it very well. So figured I'd drop it here at the end if you hung on for that. But yes, so thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.